Hi everybody. In this week's episode of The Crafting Dragon, we're making something appropriate for either your fantasy, modern, futuristic, or wargaming situation, good old-fashioned ruins. Welcome back, everybody. This project, we're going to be doing a ruined guard tower, or a ruined watchtower. So, we got this huge hunk of foam, we got a bunch of it left, let's put some of it to use. First thing we need to start with, though, is getting our template put together. So we're going to start with a piece of graph paper. Standard 4 squares to an inch graph paper. And we're going to draw out a rectangle on that paper that is going to be 5 inches tall and 6 inches wide. And this is the base dimensions of our facing wall. The facing wall is going to be where it has the door and where there's going to be a couple windows that in the ruin, some may still be standing, some may not. What we're going to do is we're going to trace a nice door shape in the middle here, and then in the halfway mark we're going to trace a line out here, and that's going to mark where the floor between the first and the second level are, and then we're going to put some windows on the second floor. Now these may be lost when we start doing the distress and cut away parts to show the building's been ruined, but we still want to kind of know where they were. Buildings are semi-symmetrical when you look at them, especially something like a tower where you're just basically building a big cube that goes up and up and up. So, take this, and we've drawn in our door and our observation windows. This one's a little off because, well, I wasn't paying attention when I started drawing my square. It was a long night and got brand new kittens. So, we've drawn in a door, nice rounded type door. 3 small observation windows. These will work for what we're going to do. Since when we tear down part of the building, we're probably going to cut down this way. This last window probably won't even be used. But we're still going to try and know where the window is. Alright, so we got that. So now we're going to cut some foam. We're going to need 2 larger rectangles. One of them is going to be the same size as this, 5 inches tall and 6 inches wide. We're going to have another one that's going to be 5 inches tall but 6.5 inches wide, because that's going to be the piece they butt up. So we have a perfect 6 inch by 6 inch right angle made with the foam. We're also going to cut 3 pieces that are going to be 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, so they're going to be basically squares, but they're going to be 2.5 inches long because they're going to be this tall, and these are going to be the timbers that are holding up the second floor. Lastly, we're going to cut some regular foam board. Now, what I mean by regular foam board, I don't mean the foam board insulation. I mean foam board as in they call it display board or mat board. The Dollar Tree has one that pretty well known in the crafting community as it's a paper-sided foam board. We're going to be taking the paper off this foam, but you're going to want to cut. We're going to cut one that's going to be 5 inches by 5 inches, and that's going to be the floor on the base floor. Then we're also going to cut a piece that's going to be 2.5 inches by 4 inches, and this is going to be that observation area that's going to go here when we have the building built. This will be the piece that's still remaining from the floor, the second floor. Now, I also like to base my projects. Some people use MDF, particle board, extruded polystyrene, sign board, a couple different materials. I've learned from a few other people that when you're going to be using a lot of basing, you want it to be sturdy, and you want it to be cheap, because you're going to go through a lot of it and you're not going to be using it for anything more than just laying flat to build the piece on. MDF's pretty cheap, but you need power tools to work it, or hand tools, and a lot of sanding time to get everything nice and beveled and nice. And not everybody's going to have power tools available. I do, but I also think MDF's a bit heavy, and I like my projects to be kind of light, so they're easy to transport around. I don't have a sign maker nearby where I can get the 3mm extruded polystyrene sheeting. I just haven't been able to find one. I found it online. It's a little expensive for me. On the other hand, I'm very lucky, and then a very close friend of mine works at an office supply store that does sign printing. And not signs on polystyrene, but what extruded polystyrene, they print signs on foam board, cardboard back foam board, and then they laminate them, and then they cut them to size. Well, they have tons of leftover scraps. So you can go to like an Office Depot or an Office Max and talk to their print department there, and if they do a lot of the mat board printing and they do a lot of the laminated mat board printing, you can get their scraps. All they're going to do is throw them away. A lot of times they're happy to find someone to take them away. So I've got some of this stuff, and I've cut this an 8-inch square. And then what I did was I pulled the lamination off one side. It comes off pretty easy because it's got a heavy, thick plastic lamination. It just peels the cardboard, and it's going to be kind of rough, but that's good because it's going to give us a nice rough surface to glue and adhere things to and to paint on. So that's going to work out in our benefit. A little bit of an edge there, so we're going to probably take a knife and we're going to bevel around on the edges. So that'll be the first step we're going to do. We're going to take our knife, and we're just going to bevel along the edges. Just kind of taking it at a 45, maybe a little bit more than a 45-degree angle, and just kind of want to pull that sharp edge off. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to have it so it's not just a stark edge on the table. And this is something that I actually learned about doing from wargaming guys. I got into wargaming later, after I was already making stuff, and this was a really easy technique. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfectly symmetrical. You're just wanting to take that edge off so the piece will lay flat and you have a nice gentle ramp or walk up onto the piece to make it feel like it's part of the table. All right, and I'm going to continue this around, and when this is done, we're going to come back and we're going to start looking at the rest of the board. Okay, here we are, all nicely beveled, and we actually sanded it a bit when we were done. Just took the sanding sponge and just kind of smoothed it out to make sure we cut down the razor and it cut so it just looks like a nice smooth beveled corners. Now, I have had some people wonder why I don't use cardboard. I don't like the use of cardboard for bases, and I'm not too crazy about it for walls. I will use it for roofs and whatnot, but I don't personally like using it for anything I'm going to put something on, simply because of the fragile nature of cardboard in my mind. I game with young people a lot. A lot of my main gaming group are younger players. So when we're playing, they're playing around sometimes. They've got sodas. We're at the table, and I've had things spill and I've had things dump. And cardboard's just pressed paper, so you get it wet and it just comes apart. Hate that. Dislike that entirely. Foam's nice and waterproof, and the nice thing about having this with the bottom here, it's nice and slick. So, I mean, it comes off and wipes out real nice if something spills on the table. And I just think foam is a little sturdier. So, I just prefer not to use cardboard. People who use cardboard, that's great. If you want to use cardboard as a base, there's nothing at all wrong with that. Go right ahead. I used to. I don't anymore. I had a couple pieces get ruined by a spilled soda, so I try not to use that anymore. So, we've got our base done. We're going to set this aside for now. We just want to have it ready so we kind of know what we're working with. But it's going to set this aside, and now we're going to look at how we put together our building. Okay, so you'll see here we have cut out our template and we've laid it on top of our foam. We've got it measured up, the bottom, which is the flattest part, and the clean edge where the walls are going to butt together are going to be at. So from here, this is what we wanted the straight pins for, because this is how we're going to mark exactly where our points are going to go. We're just going to take pins and we're going to put them in the corners of the graph paper, and this will get us exact dimensions. We have as you know, the windows just kind of roughly drawn on because we knew where they want to go. By taking the pins and putting them into the foam, we're going to mark exact squares, or exact rectangles, I should say, of where we want everything to go, so it's nice and equal. So once we've got all the pins in, I'm probably going to put another pin in the middle side of each, just so we can mark clearly where these rectangles are, so we know where to do the cutting. We're also going to do this on the doors. We're going to do the pins on the door frame, each place where the drawn line crosses one of the blue grid lines. So we get a nice clean line that way. So I'm going to finish pinning this up, and then we'll come back. Alright, so here we are all pinned up. So now we know where everything is going to be on this once we take the template off. So we just take the pins out. And we lift up. It may be hard to see on the camera, but there's a very distinct line of pin marks. So we know exactly where the objects we're going to put into this building are. Now the other wall isn't going to have any windows or whatnot. That's just going to be a flat wall. But we're still going to texture and whatnot, and we'll come to that. We're going to start with the texturing here. What we're going to do is you just take a pen and take your straight edge, and you want to connect the dots with your windows and your door so you know exactly where they are. I'm going to do that. We'll come back and take a look at it. Okay, so you can see here we've got our windows drawn in, we've got our door drawn in, and I actually went ahead and started the detail work to draw the stone brick inlay over the top of the door. Now, I'm figuring this building is going to be a brick building, so we're going to give it a brick-like texture. So the easiest way to do this is we're just going to start over here. And actually we're going to edge up this way. So we want the most amount of working room here. We're going to edge up, and we're going to go every ½ inch. We're going to make just a bare line. And then we're going to do that again over here. And the reason we're going to do this is we're now gonna draw these through. And you can draw these light the first time you draw them, because we're gonna go back over them after we've got them all marked out where they are. Because we're going to be cutting a lot of this off, or at least a good amount of this off, we don't want to do too much extra work. But the nice thing is, if you know how to construct a solid building, yes, you can construct ruins from it, but you can also take these same techniques and just build a regular building with them. Just don't cut pieces off. Alright, I'm going to finish these lines across the top, and then we're going to rotate, and we're going to measure 1 inch, and we're going to do 1 inch lines and start the bricks here, and then we're going to offset them in the middle of each of the 1 inch bricks. There'll be an offset line where the other brick will be. So you'll see what I mean. You're going to do the same technique the other direction. I'm going to do this, and then we'll come back and you can see what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so we've got our brickwork in, and now we're just going to start chasing all these lines with the pen to make sure they're nice and dramatic, so when we paint them, our black will go in there nice and deep, and we'll really get the texture to come out really nice and bold. Alright, I'm going to finish chasing these out, and then we're going to look at where we're going to cut down on this. So we're going to look at how dramatic of a cut we want to do and what we want to do to make this building look like it's been wrecked. So let me finish chasing these lines, and then we'll come back. Alright, we're all nice and chased. So now we have to decide how much destruction we want to have. I was looking to probably make this pretty heavily destructed. So I was going to start about here with my line, maybe even middle here, and kind of cut the corner of the window so that window gets wrecked. Cut here, have this brick here, and maybe cut all the way down to this way and leave the rest of this here. So it'll come down like this. So let's just, we're gonna start there. This is all gonna come out. The window breaks. We'll leave this cut there. As I said, the last window is gonna matter. Alright, so we've got a good idea where this is going to be. So at this point, this is where you would take your X-Acto cutting knife and you're going to rip this out. And even though you're going to want to do this to make it look jagged like a cut, I should say as a break, your cut you still want to have it nice and clean. So we're doing the same thing we've done with the other cut. You're going to start with a small scoring cut, and you're just going to slowly dig out to get where you want to go. Take your knife and just sort of trace your path of destruction. And so we can just get the parts that we're not going to use. That we can just roughly pop out of our way. All right. You can see how this cut is going. So I'm gonna finish ripping this all out and we're gonna come back. All right, we're back. So we've taken our facing wall piece. We've taken out all the excess foam. We've dug out with the windows where we tore off that part of the wall. We sanded it where it was a little too rough, a little too jagged, a little too torn, just to make it look like they're broken bricks. And then we took the pen and we chased where the brick edges would be so that we can see the brick texture going through. We also tore out the rest of the windows and the door frame. And then we chased through the door and the windows and around the side. And then we did the brick texturing and chasing on the back. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to take our tin foil, and now that it's all bricked out, we're going to just do our texturing to it. And we know how this is done. It's the tinfoil ball method. We'll get that finished up, and then we're going to take the other wall, and this isn't going to have any windows or doors, and it's just going to be a brick wall that we're going to put our brick pattern on, and then we're going to tear it down, put our brick pattern on the other side, make it all nice and match. Again, take the tin foil, texture it up, and then we'll be ready to start putting this together with the floor piece. The floor piece, again, is a piece of the Dollar Tree foam. It is going to be a 6.5-inch square. So when we come back, these pieces will be done, and we'll be looking at assembly. Okay, so we're back, and we have our two corners, or our two walls that are going to fit together to make a corner to go onto our lovely floor piece here. Now the floor piece is a 6.5-inch square of foam of the foam board that we get from Dollar Tree. And again, the reason we want the one from Dollar Tree is because it does this, and that peels off really easily, and that's what we want. Now, because we got a wrecked building, we don't actually want the entirety of the floor. We're just going to want this portion. We're going to end up cutting this part off. So this part is important to be square, and it's 6.5 inches. This part was used a scrap piece, so it's not exactly perfectly square over here, but that's okay. We don't need this part. So what we want to do is we want to texture up the floor, design the floor, make it look like a floor before we cut a piece off and then texture it. So we could do a grid. If you want to have a grid on your floor, that's a good way to go. If you're not really crazy about a grid, you can just kind of draw some sort of floor design. You could do diamonds or triangles, however you want to do it. I'm gonna draw a simple grid to make it look like it was a tile floor before I distress it out, like it was just inlaid stone tiles. So we're gonna take the floor, we're going to draw our lines on it, then we're going to use the tin foil, put some stone texture on it, and then I'm going to cut a portion of it off here because this part of the building wrecked and came over, so that's going to be ripped off. The nice thing we're going to have, we have all these pieces that we used to cut out earlier. We're going to keep those because we're going to use those for rubble when we're dressing up the rest of this destroyed building. So go ahead, draw yourself what you want for your floor, design it how you want, and then you're going to cut this portion off so that we show that this is the part of the building that got wrecked away. Remember to leave at least that ½ inch there because that part's going to be important. So you don't want to start before there and kind of go to here. We'll be right back. Alrighty, so we have finished texturing and cutting our floor piece for the tower. And now we're just going to assemble the pieces. I'm not going to use hot glue here, although I'll use hot glue in a lot of other projects. I'm not going to use hot glue here because we don't want the seams to melt at all. We want this to really just fit together tightly. A little thunder, we're having some rain today here in Milwaukee. So what we are going to do, we are going to take our pieces and we're going to fit them together. We're going to be using tacky glue. I really love Eileen's tacky glue. This is great PVA glue. You can use any kind of PVA glue you like. I just really like Eileen's tacky. But then we're going to use some pins to reinforce our glue points. And these pins we're going to be able to leave right in the project and just push them in and leave them in there. And the Mod Podge right over the top of them. They won't even be noticed because we're going to put them in the middle of the brick seams. So, this is our first side. This is the side that's on the outside. So we're going to take some pins. Push one there. We're going to do one about mid-size. And then we're going to do one here in the bottom. And then we put them in right here, here, and here. And we're going to take the tacky glue and we're going to run a light bead. Don't need to use too much, just a light bead. Light bead down. Oh, you don't mind getting a little messy. I'll run a finger down just to make sure it's on there. And then we're going to press it against. And then we're going to push our pins. All the way through. And then what I'll do is I'll take a back of another pin and I'll push them the rest of the way in. And if they're giving me trouble like they are right now, I might actually just take the tip of the knife and use them to push them down below the level of the foam. And like I said, we're going to leave those in because they're a nice reinforcement. Now we're going to do the same thing on the flooring. Put one right in the corner. One at each of the extremities. Then we're going to take our project and we're going to run a light bead. Actually, add a little more here. There we go. Spread that out a little bit. All right. and then centering on the front piece. Make sure you push them in straight. If they go in at an angle, you'll do what you just did there and have them burst out through the front or side. That's not why we're doing this. And then in this case, take one more right around mid-wall. Just to handle that bowing. And boom. We got a piece that now just needs to dry. So we'll be able to put that on the base and let that dry. And then we're going to deal with those posts and that ceiling piece we made, the support area. Now we want to apply a wood texture to these pieces of foam. See, I've already done it here with these. It's a very simple method. You're just taking a wire brush. You can get these at Dollar Tree, a 3-pack for just $1. And you just take it and kind of firmly draw it down the foam, and it'll make a really nice wood texture on the foam. And you don't have to be super accurate. You just want to come up and down and create a wood grain so that when you do the highlighting of the paint, it's got something to stick to, so it creates a grain look. So there we go. So we got our 3 supports. We've done that too. I'm going to set those aside. Alright, so we have our 2-inch by 4-inch. This is the remnant of the ceiling or the floor of the second floor that we're going to be attaching this to the mid-level of the ruins. So we're going to do the same thing as we did the posts, but we're also going to need to mark it for where we're going to have our where we're going to have the slats. So we're going to go try and make them pretty even. You don't want to push down too hard. This Dollar Tree foam is kind of soft. It's good because it really takes detail well, but if you push too hard when you're trying to draw these slats, you're going to push right through the foam, and then you're going to have something that's going to be really fragile and or actually rip and tear right through. And then we're going to take this and, in a couple places maybe just put a couple lines here or there so you can see that there's slats that they were just, wood that they put together to make floorboards. I mean, if you've seen floorboards before, you know what I'm talking about here, where they're just taking the wood, put the pieces down, put the boards together. So we've got some boards there now. And then we're going to do the same thing we did to the posts. We're going to take our wire brush and we're just going to scrape it the length of the foam so that we create a nice wood grain texture. And we're going to peel the foam off the back. And you're going to want to do the same thing on the back. You're going to want to chase these lines down the front so that you know where your line's going to go. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw my lines here, and then we're going to scrape the foam, and then we'll have our piece and we're ready to go. And then we're going to mount it. We'll need a couple pins to mount it. We're going to mount it just like we did the two pieces together, but we're going to also put some posts in there as well, and we'll show that part of the assembly. We'll be back. Alright, we're back, and silly me, forgot all about tolerances. When I did my math and put these together, I forgot that I wanted to have something on a specific line. So, when I had you cut these, I had you cut them at 2.5 inches long. You're going to take 1/8 of an inch off there, about this much. Not a lot, but we want enough so that these sit right on the seam line. So, got to take about 1/8 of an inch off each one of them. Not a big deal. You see, we've already glued one into place, and when I was putting that in place is when I noticed it. So, silly me. It happens. So, we're going to take them, and since these are going to be the timbers that are supporting this observation deck here, we're going to put them in. We're going to put one here, right at the outside width of where that is. And then we're going to put one more right underneath of that corner. So, and then we're talking about the pins, and where are the pins going to go? Well, the pins are going to be coming in right near that edge. And again, we're doing this right on the seam lines. So that when we pull them through just a little bit, they disappear into the foam. But we'll have a nice extra support there. And we're going to do, since we've got the foam block supporting this end, we're just going to take 2 of them and we're going to stick them in here and here. Just so this slips onto something. So when you're putting this on, the side you've detailed, that's going to be the outside edge. So put this on your outside edge. So we run a bead of glue. And then we drop a small bead of glue right there on the top of the post. Right along the pins. And take your finger and just wipe away the excess glue, and we have our observation level. Now we're going to put the other posts in place. And then for this outside post, we're only going to put a post in place. We are going to take a pin, And just to put that down. And if you like, again, I like the pins because with these thin pieces of foam, for this kind of project, since these are actually going to be structural supports, I like the reinforcement of having the pin in the underneath there. Now we're firmly in place. Everything's pinned, everything's glued. We're just going to wait for this to dry. And when it's dry, we're going to glue it onto the base that we prepped before. And then we're going to give the whole thing a coat of the Mod Podge with the black paint mixed in. And when we come back to it next time, that Mod Podge will be dry. And we're going to start talking about detailing the entire project. Okay, I realized before I want to start before I want to do my base coat, we want to actually do some of the detail work so we get it covered with the base coat. So, oops, forgot a step. So we're going to take a couple of these pieces that we cut off and we detailed, and we just want to kind of put them where they look like they're going to fit best. There's no real science to this. You're just going to find a couple places where you think they'll look good. They look like they've randomly fallen off. And you're going to want to finish texturing them. So even though they've been cut off, you want to go around, sand them a bit here and there. Put some pieces on, put some of the texturing with the tinfoil ball on there. And just throw a couple pieces down to really dress up the project a bit. So you're going to want to glue those in place once you know where you want them. Now the other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grit up your base. Now I use two kinds of grit, so I'm going to use a heavier grit here. And that's cornmeal. Cornmeal is going to be a very fine texture to it, and it's going to soak into the glue, and it's going to give us a nice dirt-like texture when the glue dries. I had forgotten about my cornmeal texturing techniques. Honestly, I'd completely forgotten about it. That's what we used when we didn't have a lot of money, so we couldn't buy the fancy stuff. Until I started wargaming again back in the 90s, when we didn't always have the ability to go get everything we wanted from the hobby store, because you could always go to Graham's pantry and grab a small baggie of cornmeal and it wouldn't even be missed. You get this lovely lovely grit texture to it. But the reason we use the Mod Podge is, one, we want something thinner. You could use just watered down PVA if you wanted. I had the Mod Podge handy. I use plain Mod Podge for a lot of different things. So I've always got a bunch of it handy. It's just a great universal tool. So again, shout out to Black Magic Games, absolutely genius. When I saw him mixing it with black paint as a base coat, I literally slapped my forehead and was like, why in the world didn't I ever think of that? And now this will be nice and gritted up. And then when this dries, now finally, when this dries, we will take it and put our black bomb on it with our Mod Podge black paint mix. And the nice thing about that is that a lot of people think you can just put on grit, just put a layer of paint down and then put your grit on that, and that's not going to stick. It'll eventually come off. It'll look like crap. By using the Mod Podge as part of the underneath, or PVA glue, whatever you want to end up using, and then you use the PVA coating over the top, all of your grit texture will be wonderfully locked in place. You don't have to worry about it wearing off. You don't have to worry about it rubbing it off. It's just going to be there, and it's going to be part of your piece for now and forever. So let this dry, and we will come back after we have primed it all, when we start detail paint. Well, that's the build. Thanks everybody for being with me this week. Next week we're going to come back and we're going to do some paint and some detail work, and we're going to finish up these set of ruins. Thanks for being with me again, and game on!